everyone, and welcome to Todd's podcast. I want to invite you to take a listen today. We've got an exciting guest. He's a man about town, an entrepreneur extraordinaire, pilot, hiker, wine connoisseur. I'm sure I've left out a dozen things, or I might even made up one or two in there.
Exaggerating greatly already, Todd.
Well, it's going to be a long hour, but he was also the Winter Haven Chamber of Commerce Bankers Cup Award recipient a couple years ago. And so I'd like to take a moment to welcome Bud Strang of 610 fame from Winter Haven. Welcome, Bud.
Happy to be here.
Good. First, I want to establish a simple ground rule. There's going to be no embarrassing personal stories that we're going to divulge today during this podcast, but we may want to talk about some coot hunting or rabbit hunting back in the day if you feel so inclined. But nothing too salacious, whether we make it up or not. The old mutually assured destruction rule is in effect.
There you go.
All right. So let's get down to business and tell us a little bit about your upbringing. Where were you born? Have you been in Winter Haven your whole life?
Was actually born in Texas. My father was a pilot in the Navy and was born on the Navy base in Corpus Christi, Texas. Decided to move when I was 3 weeks old. We moved to I believe we went to the Naval Air Station in Virginia Beach and then Pensacola. We bounced around quite a bit. I think I was 3, when we actually moved to Lake Alfred before we moved to Winter Haven.
Didn't you spend some time in Eufaula, or is that just where your grandparents?
That was my dad grew up and family there.
So was John your next younger brother? Was he born in Winter Haven?
He was born in Virginia Beach.
Okay.
My dad was stationed at the Naval Air
And then
Station.
all the others were born in Winter Haven?
In Winter Haven.
Okay.
Correct.
So you came to Winter Haven as a young boy. You went through public schools. What were your interests in high school? You went to UF undergraduate and then UNC as law school. What did you do in high school?
Well, a lot of the same things you did. We grew up in the same neighborhood. Back then it was, we kind of grew up on the lakes with water skiing, tubing, all of those things. And so it was just, it was a much different place back then. I was talking to your brother the other day, and I said, I think one arm is longer than the other was carrying those 5-gallon cans of gas down to the beach and stuff. But no, it's just kind of the same. Everybody was kind of doing the same thing. We take it for granted, but growing up on Lake Otis and getting out, it was great.
Yeah, I look back at our neighborhood. We had the Turners across the street that had 4 boys. Or 3 boys, 3 in my family, 3 in the Lucases, 2 in the Portlocks. 3 plus Max in your house. The Grays had a couple, the Bakers had a couple, the Irelands right around the corner. I mean, we always had a football game, capture the flag game, basketball game. We always had that, and I agree. We were so fortunate to have that. We didn't have to leave to find mischief. We found enough adventure. There was right there in our backyard.
Plenty right there in the neighborhood.
And without getting too personal, the house that y'all built, we had epic wiffle ball games in the
we did
in the courtyard.
We did,
and that was fun. But I remember the boathouse y'all had, and it was down on the lake. And everyone thought it was haunted. Was it really haunted or not?
I don't think.
Or is that a wives' tale from?
I'm thinking you're making this up, Todd. I don't remember that part of it, but it was a scary. I mean, that thing was probably built back in the 30s or 40s, and
I'm sure without a permit.
It was a little scary down there.
Yes, it was. It was. So, you've gone through college. What was your degree in undergraduate?
Anthropology.
Very useful in today's world.
Exactly.
If you looked at the State of the Union speech last night, there are a lot of dinosaurs on TV.
Yes, there were.
And then you went to law school. You came back to Winter Haven and went into the business world. Tell us a little bit about how you got started in that and what you started doing.
I took a year off after undergraduate and then went back to law school, not because I had this didn't know what to do. Anthropology was not going to be a great career path for me. I determined that. But I went to law school, and about halfway through law school, realized that I would be walking malpractice if I tried to be a practicing attorney. But I enjoyed it and went ahead and finished out law school. Came back to Winter Haven, took the bar, passed the bar, and but I've never practiced. I've just immediately started getting into sort of the business world, and it's and I'm glad that legal background's been a big help. But like I said, I would have been a terrible attorney.
Yeah. The folks I know that are lawyers, they either love it or hate it, and there's very little middle ground. And some of the ones that are still lawyers, they hate it, but they're too far in it to get out. So
there you go.
How do we do that? You've been president of the Winter Haven Chamber. You've been president of the Central Florida Development Council. You're CEO of 610. What other leadership positions, what other things have you done in our community? And what's your style of leadership? I mean, some of it has been volunteer, some of it is in your own paid organization, which is your business.
Well, on the for the civic engagements, if you will, let's say, and you'll certainly relate to this, you need to have a good executive director in place to make the trains run on time. And in almost all of my, from the chamber to Main Street to CFDC, that was the case. And so they make the president or chairman look good. And on the business side, I'm kind of a consensus guy. And with 610, my partners, we go back a long way, and it's there's really 4 CEOs for 610. It's not or 5. It's not a real command and control organization.
Right.
But we kind of manage through consensus. Every now and then, someone has to call the balls and strikes, but most of the time we get to the same place.
Do you each kind of have a role, or is it, hey, we just sit around and we try and solve the problem, but titles don't really matter until.
Yeah, I mean, everybody, Kerry he is a lawyer and a really good one, and he comes at it at a problem from sort of a legal perspective. Steve Chrisman, CPA, he's our CFO, and obviously that's been a great help. Joe's more on the construction side. I jokingly tell people what I really do for a living is I manage a very different and interesting group of personalities.
Yes.
And so, but no, it's
that's an understatement.
And all these guys, yes.
So 610 has you've taken upon yourself. And the project, I'm going to call it as a project, is Winter Haven, downtown Winter Haven. And I think they should build a statue to 610, or certainly put a number of plaques around for the revitalization of our downtown that you've done. Why is it so important to revitalize downtowns? Were they just kind of dying naturally, or do you have to breathe life into them? They just don't breathe on their own, it seems like, anymore.
No, I mean, it happened all over the country. The mall gets developed on the outside of the downtown core, and the downtown core starts going downhill quick. And but the downtowns, we feel, and I think a lot of people share the same conviction, is, I mean, they're essential for the community. It's the heart of the community. I mean, and if you get that working well, then that has a very positive impact on the rest of the city. And it's sort of that Winter Park effect in that it's a and so we joke about it a little bit. We all live here. Most of our investors live in Winter Haven, and obviously we're a for-profit enterprise, and and want to make money and deliver a good return. At the same time, there's that intangible, you're fixing up your own backyard to some degree. And we say jokingly, but we're kind of halfway serious, that our business plan is based on laziness. We don't want to have to get in a car and drive to Tampa or Orlando to go out to eat or to go see a concert or something like that. So, and I think there's a lot of power in focusing on a relatively small area. Downtown Winter Haven's about 80 blocks, and we're not going to own all of it. Don't intend to, but I think we've got enough of a footprint that we can start. We can have an impact on the quality plane and really make sure that we get the right things in the right places.
Your comment about the malls and the destruction that they caused on downtown, it's almost like the malls moved the downtown footprint to one big building. And the downtown seems to be littered, and littered's probably the wrong word, but with mom and pops, with local entrepreneurs, local business owners. But when you get to the mall, you start smattering in the national chains.
Yep.
Who don't have the same interest as the real estate company or the insurance company or the small bar or the small restaurant in downtown. And that, to me, seems to be why downtowns are really starting to thrive again, as y'all have brought that spirit back to downtown.
Well, I don't think the downtowns are they're not gonna be what they were 50 years ago. They're not gonna be the retail centers.
There's too many options.
Yeah, Amazon. There's a lot of, and especially retail. There's certainly a place there. Food and beverage. I mean, nothing pulls people together like getting food and beverage. And so, for Winter Haven specifically, I think it's becoming a sort of a destination for food and beverage. I think there's 38 restaurants and bars and things to do in the downtown core. 10 years ago, you could probably count them on one hand. Right. And we've got for the east side of the county, and really for the entire county, there's a. So I think that's going to be one of the centers. And then the other thing, the real differentiator, I believe, is just the whole walkability. Is the to be able to walk to things and not have to get in your car is powerful. And I think as we start to add in residential, for the longest time, around 2012 was when we kind of did this flip, if you will. And up until that point, we just bought a building because it made sense. They were just a series of kind of
transactions,
one-offs. And then, but 2012, coming out of the recession, we kind of did a pause, and gosh, we own a fair amount of stuff here. We got to start maybe planning and being a little more intentional. That's when we started looking at the downtown itself as a project. And at the end of the day, it's a mixed-use project. It's going to have it's going to have retail, it's going to have office. We've got a fair amount of med office. We're so close to the hospital,
right,
which is good. And then we are a few years back. Started off, he came over and did a talk to the Main Street group, but engaged him as a consultant. He's now a partner and an investor and playing a very active role in 6M. But Rick Baker, Rick was the mayor of St. Pete for 9 years, and I told him, I said, Rick, we want to do what you did over here. Now, we realize that the decimal point will be in a different spot, but the concepts are all the same.
Right.
If it's highly walkable and there are things to do, then it's going to be a nice place to live. And that's been sort of one of our big focuses now, is adding the residential piece in.
Todd's podcast is sponsored in part by SVN Saunders Ralston Dantzler Real Estate. Since 1996, the firm has offered unrivaled brokerage services throughout Florida, Georgia, and Alabama. With over 90 expert advisors throughout the region, our team has the knowledge and resources to help clients realize their most ambitious real estate investment goals. When you choose SVN Saunders Ralston Dantzler Real Estate, you have access to a diverse suite of commercial and land services, including forestry consulting, land management, auctions, property management, commercial leasing, and negotiating conservation easements. If you're seeking to invest in land or explore commercial real estate opportunities in the Southeast, contact us today at svnsaunders.com or call 877-518-5263 to connect with an advisor today. Once again, that's svnsaunders.com or by phone at 877-518-5263.
So if someone, some group, some company wanted to try and emulate what 610's done, and they say, hey, I want to do this in Frostproof, Sebring, you pick a city, it doesn't matter where, Lakeland. It sounds to me like you have to have that recipe of retail, food and beverage, office, and now the residential component. And because the residential component just feeds that other part of the animal, or is it just a cool place for people that say they want to live downtown?
Well, it's a little bit of all of that. You've got to, for people to live downtown, and there are going to be things to do and things to walk to, right. When you can combine all of that, though, work, live, and play, and I'd also add learn into that mix. Then, that's the recipe for I think a real successful downtown redevelopment.
So 610 today is not 610 20, 25 years ago. So if someone comes in, they've got to have kind of a long-term mentality.
Yeah, these kind of projects are they're long-term. They
right.
don't, you stop and you don't start. You start and you don't stop. And right. So it is a a lot of real estate development it's an extractive industry. Developer comes in, builds whatever it is, an apartment complex, or leases it up, sells it, and he moves on to the next community.
Very transactional. Very
transactional, and in the long run, I'm not sure best for the. It works at the time, but I think we're kind of looking at this long term for the reasons I've mentioned. We live there, and but I also think it ends up. A good friend of ours is doing this up in Opelika, Alabama, and he said if you do it right, this becomes irreplaceable real estate, right. and that it would be very difficult to come and duplicate the scale and the interconnectedness, if you will, but that's where I think the real value creation lies in the medium to long term. It's certainly not the short term.
You've said it twice, and I think it's a fact that not everyone appreciates is all you guys live in Winter Haven and in our community. Your investors are part of it. So the people who are running your team, leading your team, investing in your team and your ideas and your concepts are all local. So they have a vested interest in making sure that the projects are successful. And I think that is a lesson. It would be hard for you to maybe just go down and do this in another neighborhood, in another town, because of what you just said.
I think that's right. I think it's our at the end of the day, we're a real estate company, and we are looking to generate a return on the investments for our investors. There's that direct return, but I think there's that indirect return that if you live there and you're improving the place that you live, that the impact of a downtown that is working really well on the rest of the community, I think, are significant. Hard to measure, but it's there and it's significant. It would be a little difficult to go into a community where there's no connection and it just takes a long time and I think it'd be difficult to do.
I think you could be a consultant, you could lend advice, but you still have to have that local component.
Yeah,
that's going to wake up and go to bed there every day and every night and go to church there and eat there and office there and get their medical attention there.
Absolutely.
610's kind of a unique name. How did that name come about?
It was the same my dad had. So if you get 6 out of 10 right, son, you're gonna be okay. Now we prefer 8 or 9 out of 10. That's a lot more fun, but that's where that came from.
Well, 610 gets you into the Hall of Fame all day long in any sport. But,
there you go. That's right. That's right.
But eight out of 10 certainly puts a lot more money in the bottom line.
It's more fun. And if somebody tells you they're 10 out of 10, don't believe them.
Yeah. So we've got about 73 million listeners, is what Eli's been telling me. I'm not sure if that's a rounding number or
almost 74.
Almost 74.
Wow.
And so I asked some folks for questions, and most of them I got were unaskable because they were from your brothers, my brothers, or the Flying Palumbo brothers.
I understand completely.
But I did get one. I'm not sure if the email was hacked from some Chinese TikTokers, but here's one from Gary from Kathleen. How do you compare the development of downtown Winter Haven to the development of Lakeland?
I think if you're, people have been saying this for decades that Tampa and Orlando are going to grow together. And it's kind of happening. I mean, the Lakeland Winter Haven MSA is second or third fastest growing in the country. Right. And so a lot of this growth is it's horizontal. It's neighborhoods on the outside of the downtown cores. But I think that if you are looking for something that is a little more urban, walkable, there are going to be two places in the county that it's going to be downtown Lakeland, which kind of leans more towards Tampa, St. Pete, or downtown Winter Haven, which leans a little more towards Orlando, Orange County. And I don't see it as a competition. I'd say we're a small city. Lakeland's over 100,000 residents, so I think that's a larger city, obviously. Right. And the fact of the matter is what's and I firmly believe this, that what's good for Lakeland is good for Winter Haven. What's good for Winter Haven is good for Lakeland, because you got people going back and forth on a regular basis.
Here's one from Bridget. Winter Haven 2.0. What is Winter Haven 2.0?
Well, I think you're going to see, we finished our first sort of multifamily project at scale last year, a rain dance right by the brewery there, Grove Roots Brewery. It was 105 units. We broke ground a couple of 3 weeks ago.
Over by the Nazarene Church?
Yes, that's the next set of apartments, 102. We've got a project that would probably get started after the end of this year, maybe first part of 25. That's another 171 units. The goal is to get to 500 or 600 units residential right downtown here in the next 3 or 4 years.
Are they typical type units? Are they more of a studio, more of a, one bedroom just for a working person?
It's a little bit of Rain Dance was all 1 and 2 bedrooms.
Okay.
This next one is going to have some studios in there.
Okay.
The kind of the common denominator for tenants or residents downtown is, if you've got 3 kids and 2 dogs, it's probably not
the right place.
Yeah, not the right place. You're going to, and so our market studies said that the tenant profile would skew younger, and then also retiring baby boomers that don't want a yard and a house to take, and we're seeing that on, one of the great things going on, and you're very active, Todd, on the CFDC is, I don't think the county has ever been in as good a position from a job creation standpoint as we are today, and that was that didn't just happen. That was a lot of hard work on a lot of people's parts, but it's we're certainly benefiting from that. There are folks moving into the community that are looking for that kind of an arrangement. So I think we've got a big focus on the residential, and then and also just in the last few years, it kind of felt like we were the only ones pulling the wagon, but there are sophisticated developers from out of the market that are looking at projects, interesting condominium project kind of in the works that we would be involved, but we would not be the lead developer on. And so I think you can see a lot more, it's kind of a virtuous cycle. The more people that are there, the more that want to live there. And, we're social creatures, and we like to bump into people, whether it's during the workday on the sidewalk or having lunch. We're a little slow getting this in place, but the cafe dining district is just opening now, and those 2 blocks down on Central Avenue. That's a city project that we're happy about.
So here's another one from my partner Gary, who's a self-described data junkie. Put your seatbelt on. What trends are you seeing in office space, vacancy rates, rents? Whether it's just office or whatever you're doing in the downtown, the different type of offerings you have.
We are not seeing a lot of inquiries for large footprints for long periods of time. I think the sort of the fastest growing part of our office business is the WeWork's not a great example, but they're examples like Industrious and others that it's executive suites, smaller spaces, dedicated desk and seats, co-working seats, and we've had a lot of activity there in the last 3 or 4 years, and we're getting ready to really increase the footprint for those. They're more management intensive, but you're also able to get a higher rate, and it's worked well for us. And we're not a big city, and so but it's not just the solo software programmer. It's insurance, it's legal, it's accounting, it's all kinds of things, and so. I think big companies now are using this flex space, is what we call it, as in it's one of the tools in their toolkit. So I think that's kind of the future. That's where it's headed.
You see any large office users sniffing around? I mean, you don't tell us any secrets or anything.
Yeah.
I'm just we seem to see that as kind of waning right now. It may come back. I think it will, like everything else is on a cycle, but right now it seems to be on a downward trend.
And I would agree. I mean, I think if medical office is a little bit different. Correct. Is that with just the growth of as the population grows, it's we're seeing some larger footprints on the medical side. I'm kind of intrigued about the study that I'm not sure who did it about the Lakeland Winter Haven area being a location for smaller corporate headquarters. I think there's our costs being what they are. You compare the cost of a facility here compared to South Florida. I mean, I think we're going to see some. I think we may see some larger office opportunities come, but it's certainly not a real active area right now.
I think there's a lot of people in South Florida. We were just there for an SVN convention. I couldn't wait to get out of there. Left yesterday morning. I was calling a good friend of mine who's been in Miami his whole life, or most of his life. And I said, when are you leaving? He goes, if it wasn't for my kids and my grandkids, I'd have been up there in Polk County a long time ago. I mean, just driving through the traffic, I don't know that I could thrive down there. I could probably survive, but just getting around was very mentally taxing and frustrating and kind of tough.
Anita, my wife and I, we're hopelessly spoiled. She works downtown. We live 6 minutes from as I've gotten older, my tolerance for traffic is moving down quickly.
I think because we didn't grow up in it. Mm-hmm. I think if that was how you grew up and that's what you knew, you would just say, this is how it is. Yeah. But I couldn't wait to get on Highway 27 just out of Miami. And wow.
Traffic is it's when I hear people talk about traffic, I say, look, I've got a solution for you. If you live downtown and you work downtown and you eat and drink downtown, just get a bicycle.
That's right. So we've talked a little bit about a healthy downtown. What's the balance or the ratio, do you think, of office, eating, drinking, medical, residential? Do y'all say, hey, we'd like to have 20% this, 40% that, or is it really just kind of an art more than a science?
Yeah, we don't have that. We're not that granular in terms of we knew we were light on the residential when Rick joined our group, and so that's kind of the focus. I think it's just kind of organic. You got to have all the food groups represented. One of the pieces that we also hope to add here going forward is owner occupied residential townhouses or condos or things like that. That adds a lot of stability to it. And it's an interesting phenomenon for us, and you can relate to this, is that because we grew up here and we've seen these changes over the last 10 or 15 years in the market. I mean, we feel like things have gotten expensive. If you're from South Florida, for example, or even Pinellas County or over in Orange County, I mean, we're a pretty good value proposition still.
Yeah. Well, where our real estate conference was at the Eden Rock Hotel right on Miami Beach. And I got out and I said, do we valet or we self-park? He said, well, you can self-park over there and it's $20 a night, but we don't guarantee the safety of your car, or you can valet. And I said, okay, I'll valet. How much is that? And he said, $55. And I went, my gosh.
Just to get you a hotel room.
And did. And there's a $47 resort fee. I said, what's that for? He said, well, towels and chairs. I said, I'm at a real estate conference. I'm not sitting by the pool. And he said, well, you also get your internet. And I'm going, goodness gracious. But, would you rather take an old building and rehab it, or would you rather start with brand new construction? I know there's pluses and minuses to both of them.
In a lot of ways, new construction's easier.
Yep.
But one of the things that this authenticity is hard to come by. Downtown Winter Haven has it. Downtown Lakeland has it. You can go clear a 200-acre orange grove off and try to create a town center. You can do it. I mean, but it's different. It's
very antiseptic.
It's not authentic, and there's pluses and minuses to that. But I think you have to have a mix, and so it's like I said, some of these old buildings will age you in the renovation process, as you know, and I think you have to have a mix of both.
Yeah.
Hey, listeners.
Hey, everyone.
Hola.
Hi, all.
Hello, everybody.
Hello. This is Rob Palumbo.
This is Fred Hyde.
This is Juliet Ashley Vide.
Dr. Angela Garcia Falconetti.
This is Congressman Scott Franklin.
This is Margie Grant.
This is Jake Palumbo.
And I want to thank you for listening to Todd's podcast.
Thank you for listening to Todd's podcast.
Thank you for listening to Todd's podcast.
Please make sure that you like and or subscribe.
Don't forget
to subscribe to Todd's podcast on your favorite podcast app. Tune in and listen.
Join in and listen to us.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I want to kind of move into a lightning round, lighten it up a little bit. So we ask you some quick questions. Hopefully you don't think too deep about them. So just kind of what comes to your mind off the top of your head.
Sure.
You have any nicknames growing up?
Fro.
Fro. I do remember that. You had quite the little afro back in the day.
Yeah.
I remember Brian Beasley, who's in our office, who's your age and my older brother Rick's age, he played with us. He still calls you Buddy. Buddy. And I remember we used to call you Bud the Stud. So
well, let's go with that one.
We'll go with Bud the Stud.
There you go.
I'm not sure that'll be corroborated by anyone, but there are those of us that remember Fro. How about your favorite food?
Nashville hot chicken.
Nashville hot chicken. Favorite sport?
I'm not sure I have a favorite.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, as far as participating in, growing up, we did the baseball and the football and all that. But
You play any sports in high school?
No.
Nope. We had plenty in the backyard.
We're plenty in the backyard.
Wiffle ball, tennis ball, capture the flag, football.
Yep.
We
Yeah.
played Butkus and
I'd forgotten all about when you were getting this organized. Your younger brother Brad chipped in that I broke his nose playing baseball or something in the back.
I don't remember that.
I think I remember that, but I apologize.
Well, you might be apologized for something that never really happened,
Okay.
but if it did happen, we all had broken noses, broken foots. We bled a lot,
Just
but that
all
was part of it.
Nobody wore shoes.
Yeah. What was your favorite movie?
These are hard questions, Todd.
Well, don't think too deep about them. Bud.
Yeah. Blazing Saddles.
Blazing Saddles, that is my all-time favorite
There we
movie.
go.
Could never be made today.
No. Offended everybody.
Yep. Music. What kind of music do you like?
I listen to all kinds of music. Americana is a very broad spectrum, but the Dairy Down project over in Winter Haven, which was kind of got us sort of reintroduced to that. So there's a group of us that goes up to Nashville for the Americana Fest every year, and Anita's able to find new bands and things like that to bring down to. But I like rock and roll. I like all kinds of music.
Yep. Do you play any instruments?
The guitar poorly. And
I thought you played the drums.
I was like for a week. I
For a
think.
week?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. But I pick around the guitar every now and then.
All right. Are you a good dancer?
Terrible.
I would agree with that.
In fact, I don't.
Do you like to cook?
No. Eggs.
Eggs?
Eggs. I can do that.
What was your first car?
My brother John and I had an MG Midget.
I thought that was just John's. I didn't know you had part ownership.
No, I tell people. I think a motorcycle would be safer. At least you'd have a chance of being thrown clear.
Yeah.
It was yes.
It was barely a tin can.
Oh my goodness.
And it was maybe as an aluminum can. It wasn't quite as sturdy as a tin can. I remember that car.
You were about 3 inches off the ground.
Yep. What's your current car?
I'm driving a Ford 150 pickup truck.
Do you like to read? Are you a reader?
Read a lot.
Do you read for pleasure or business periodicals? Are you fiction, nonfiction?
Both, and these cell phones have just wrecked our attention spans here, so I have to kind of force myself. But I try to read, make myself read a book on a pretty regular basis.
Well, I'd like to recommend one, Leadership from 100 Feet. It's written by a couple of our buddies, the Flying Palumbo brothers.
I've
and some other guys.
got an autographed version of it sitting on.
Have you dog-eared any of the pages
Not
yet,
yet.
or is it still in pristine condition?
It's in but it's on the list. I've got I've got a stack of books.
It's an easy
in
read.
various stages of being read.
I've read it 5 times. I can assure you it's a very easy read, but
all
it's
right.
worth it. What are your hobbies? What do you do to blow off steam at the end of a tough day?
Well,
Goat yoga?
have not gotten into the goat yoga scene. Do some bike riding. We get out on. We live over on one of the lakes there in Winter Haven, and so there's a group of us that gets out on the lakes fairly often, we're downtown a lot.
Yeah.
Play a little bit of golf, not much, and not very well, but.
Well, our friend, your partner, Carrie, introduced us to silverback yoga. Maybe goat yoga will be next, or maybe that's
I
something
wish she
Steve
would
will
bring
do.
that back. That was fun.
It was fun, and I actually showed improvement on that. I was most improved. I was voted most improved by all the yoga instructors.
And I told him he should have videotaped it. I mean, it'd be a comedy show there.
I remember one time we were doing some relaxation yoga. I don't know what it kind of was. And Anita, your wife, was a couple of people away, and I said, "My God, she's over there snoring." Turns out I was the one that was falling asleep, and I was the one snoring. I was just thinking it was her.
It was
and
you.
she said,
I remember that.
Yes. She said, "Todd, that was not me snoring. That was you." And I went, "I would believe that." Are you a pilot?
I grew up in a flying. My father was a Navy pilot. My brother John,
Yep.
Navy pilot. I was a private pilot for quite a while. I've got maybe 1,500 hours. I'm not doing much flying these days.
Now, your dad flew sailplanes,
Um,
from what I remember.
yes, he got. In fact, when I first soloed, it was in a glider.
Glider,
at
a
age,
sailplane glider.
and I still can't believe you could solo in a glider at age 14. You had to be 16 to fly a power plane, but I soloed when I was 14 in a glider over in Mulberry.
Did I read where you and your dad flew somewhere for some distance for a record?
We had for, gosh, I don't know, say for 9 or 10 years, we had the record dual cross country. It was from Mulberry to New Smyrna Beach, like 100 miles, something like that. But it stood for quite a while.
I would have thought it would have been a longer distance, but then you think all you do is look for thermals and go up and down and fly around. That really is a long way to go on a
Yeah, it is, because you kind of
in a glider. Also, back in the day where you lived, y'all had a lychee grove around you,
We did.
and your dad, being the entrepreneur that he was, he found the cheapest labor possible with all of us boys and maybe a girl or two from our neighborhood. Were you a picker or were you a grader?
I did a little bit of both, but during those summers, your foot would be kind of curved like that for standing on those ladders and your thumbs would be red from the lychee fruit. But yeah,
I remember I picked one day, and I think after that, your dad said, "Todd, you should be a grader." And I'm not sure I ever got back on a ladder, but I was one that went and got buckets, and I was a very good grader, but I did not have the propensity for picking.
that was back in the days before OSHA.
Yeah. Or any rules or
Or any
regulations
rules or
for that matter.
regulations.
But you got paid at the end of the day, and we had gas money to go buy a tank of gas, and we could go on the boat.
Go on the boat.
One of the things that you said is you like to hike and vacation. What's your favorite place to hike?
Used to do a lot of hiking with Carrie and Lindsay, who you
Right.
know. We used to we'd go do usually a week hike out west somewhere. One of my favorites is Big Bend National Park. We've been out there 4 or 5 times, but it's beautiful.
As you look back at your life, not that it's at the end, but what are you most proud?
Thanks, Todd.
Yeah, what are you most proud of?
I'm real pleased with what we've been able to accomplish in Winter Haven. We still have a lot of work to do, but it's I'm proud of that.
Good. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that you said, gosh, I'm glad he didn't, or I really wish he would ask me about that, or followed up with a question after we talked about this?
There are a lot in the former category.
Yes.
I can't think of anything.
If 324 Avenue B could talk, we'd all be in different positions right now, wouldn't we?
We would. But no, you set the rules out on the front end of this thing.
That was a
They are good
wonderful
rules.
house. Okay, so we're kind of wrapping up. I do appreciate you coming in. I want to give you a few minutes, though, to make an announcement about you running for office. I understand that you've had this itch for a long time. I know you're on Trump's short list for VP. I think you'd be an excellent VP. You're more excited about local politics? Where can someone contribute to you?
I'm really disappointed that you did not, after you left the county commission, that you did not help your brother out at the city commission in Winter Haven. So, you and I've had this discussion many times. I'm not the politician. That's you, man.
You
That's
are
you.
the great politician.
That's you.
I've done my tour of duty. I think
and you have, and you did a great job, by the way. And
I think John or Eve would be excellent on the city commission. Hopefully they're not listening to this podcast right now, or they might put a dead fish in my
so we
mailbox.
could tee up the trifecta over in there in Winter Haven. You jump back in there and get Rick to come off the bench there.
That's way too many of us. That's way too many of us. But I appreciate you taking the time to come in. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Kind of give us some insight on how y'all, you and 610 and your organization have approached the development of downtown Winter Haven, kind of how some other people may get some hints and secrets about that. I do appreciate it. I appreciate the friendship over the years. We've been friends for a long time.
Same here.
And have lots of stories. And we can talk about coot hunting and rabbit hunting and how all of us are still alive after some of the shenanigans on the front of your dad's hood of his car while rabbit hunting.
The Land Rover.
The Land Rover in the middle of the night.
It's a wonder.
It is a wonder. I appreciate it. Thank you very much for
Enjoyed
coming
it.
in. And
thank you for having me.
Seeing you around town.
Very good. Thank you, Todd.
Hey, everybody. I want to thank you for listening to Todd's podcast. This has been your host, Todd Dantzler. As always, don't forget to rate, review, follow, and subscribe to Todd's podcast on your favorite podcast app. If you have any questions for me or any suggestions for future guests, please call or text our number at 863-288-0944 or visit todddantzler.com. Again, that's 863-288-0944 or visit my website, todddantzler.com. I look forward to hearing your questions and feedback, and please take care.